What's happening, everyone? Welcome back. Today we're going to be covering some tips and tricks to building your own garden room like this one. So the first steps to building your garden room is to get yourself a base stand. This has been done for us, so let's get on with the timber work. The delivery was being loaded on the truck at 9 AM. It is now 1 PM and they're still not here because I do believe they're bringing it by horse and carriage. So this is how it goes, you just got to wait around. Now that the timber's finally arrived, we've got to handball all of this to the back of the garden. So let's get on with it. $999 more to go. It's all in, beautiful. So, roof rafters, furring strips, front wall that's going to be slightly thicker, and these are our main studs, so they're in a bit of a mess because we're going to start using them right now. So let's show you the first step. So because we've got a lot of these, we're going to batch mark out a load of the sole plates, the bottom plate. So what that means for us is we're having 400 centres. So I've measured from the end 400, repeated that all the way down, and then my studs are going to sit there, marked it to the right, marked, so on. And then we're also putting a mark 600 from each end because we're going to be bolting these down to our base. So what I'm doing here, I'm just marking the position of my studs for all my plates, and these just represents the studs that are going to come up in our wall sections. So we just build our wall in sections and then we bolt them together. And I've also marked the cross for where I'm going to pre-drill my bolt holes. So I'm just going to take a spade bit and pre-drill those so I haven't got to do it. Right, so we're a bit more organised now. We've got our studs cut there. We've got the bottoms, or the bases, or the soles, and we've got the heads or the tops all cut, marked, ready to go, and some more studs over there. So let's get one built and show you what it looks like. So we're going to get one from this little pile, the bottom piece, chuck it in a space, and we're also going to get one from the top pile, put that over here, like so. And each one of these bays is going to take 7 studs, so we're going to grab 7 studs. Right, because we've marked all these out, we don't need to do any measurements. We're just going to take our studs and we're just going to nail them in place all the way along the bottom plate that we've got here. You'll know it's for the bottom because remember we drilled the holes in the bottom ones, so they're just slightly different because they've got holes in them. So this is the corner of the building, this one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually put a spacer in, and then we're going to put an extra stud on here because when your other wall comes, like so, you've got something for your plasterboard to sit on, because if that wasn't there, you've got nowhere to pin your plasterboard. So just for the corners this is. If you are going to use this little method here, just try and leave this stud last, because obviously you won't get your nail gun or your screw gun, whatever you choose to use, you won't get it in. So a little tip for you there. So this is the basic structure. We're building little sections of wall and pinning them all together as we build them. So we're going to crack on now, and then I'll show you the infills. So because these are not going to quite fit full length every time, so we'll cut down and make smaller sections of wall. See you in a second.
So when building these type of structures, Phil likes to build loads of little sections first, like here he is now. It's much easier to do this. So all that prep work Phil's done first by marking all them holes where he's going to bolt it down. I'll show you, because we're going to resin bolt these down to the ground, so obviously we don't want the frame to blow away. And also he marked all the centres, so now when he just brings it, look, he just just banging them in like it's nothing. So basically, if you're doing this at home, if you start in a corner, it's a lot easier and the structure will hold together. But obviously it still can blow over. It's not very strong at this stage because obviously we've got to rack it. And we're actually going to show you that in this video. Well, as the day is coming to an end today because we've had a really late delivery, if you have to leave your frame like this,
we're going to be putting some temporary bracing down into the ground behind just to stop it from blowing over.
So you can just grab some timbers. We're going to get some battered ones, but you can use a good one, screw it in and then just unscrew it. It's absolutely fine. So now Phil's building the final corner. Using the plasterboard technique, and I'll show you what it means in practical terms. So when you lay a bit of plaster here, bosh, and then you lay a bit of plaster here, there's something to screw on into the corner. And as you can see, he's not put the centre section in again because he wants to get his pin gun. Not just a pin gun, if you're using like a drill, you still need to leave that gap out to fix your outer ones in, put your head on, and then put the middle bit in after. I was actually working on this little corner here, so we're missing this here. So he's actually building that section, then we're going to bolt that to that bit, and then we're going to put the full structures in. Phil's wandering over with it like it's nothing.
So it's a new day, not quite as sunny today. And what we're doing before we crack on building any more walls is we're going to put our DPC, which is this stuff, it's just a sheet of plastic, underneath the plates on the floor. And what that does is that stops any moisture trapping up into your timber. So if you look at these two here, if that was to sit there, moisture's going to track up into this and it'll rot out before you know it. If you put yourself a little bit of DPC like this, it's a barrier between the moisture and the timber. So we'll get on with that and then we'll move to the next steps.
So at this current point in time, we're just building the last two full walls before we actually put the little pieces in on the edges.
So because we've got so many studs to cut, rather than doing this measure, mark and all that, all I've done is I put myself a little stop block on the end of my saw with a clamp, and I just butt that up. I put myself a little pencil mark there just in case I knock this over, so I know that it's definitely good. Slide it over, run the saw through and just keep repeating. It's a lot faster, especially when you're doing that many. So a little tip there for you.
Right, so we are currently on the last of the full walls now. So we've got another full wall here that we can build, and there that we can build. So we're literally going to just build them on the floor, throw them up.
Right, time for another wall. Slowly coming round now, as you can see. And the good thing about this is it starts to support itself, not so risky. Remember, if you ain't got one of these, get yourself a screw gun. You can just screw these in, but this is obviously faster. Or a hammer and nails. Right, so we've got all of our walls built except our main face wall, which we're going to be leaving because the doors are going in there. And now we're going to move on to starting to bolt these walls down. So we've run a string line, put some blocks on each end, and then we just go along, moving the wall with a spare block so it's all completely straight. Drill our holes. As you can see, there's some holes drilled, and then we'll blow them out with some air, and then we're going to resin fix some threaded bar in there, and then we'll bolt this building to the floor. So let's get on with it. So it's time to put some noggins in our back wall, so come with us. So what we've done, we've measured our gaps, but what I like to do is I like to measure at the bottom, because what you'll get is you'll get deflection. If you look at that, it bows in and out. So if you measure at the bottom, it's more accurate and you won't end up bowing your walls out. We've drilled and put some threaded bar in, ready to bolt that back wall down, and then we'll rack it, which we'll show you just after we put these noggins in. The reason you want to put some noggins in is because over this span, if you look, it just brings more rigidity to the building, We're going to set them at about 1200. Reason we do that, that is about half the height, and it gives extra support to things like plasterboard when you come to screw it on. So let's show you the racking and the noggins, and then we'll move on from that. Quick tip for when you're running in your noggins, if you're like me and you want them to be perfect, we just mark either end, get ourselves a chalk line, put a nail in one end if you're by yourself, or get your helper to hold it. Then we just go bing, and now we know exactly where our noggins need to be. Right, so noggins across the back are in. Obviously we've got to do all the sides, and we've started to rack the building. So all that means is we're taking sheets of OSB or ply if you like, or you can even put diagonals in, but we're using sheets on the back. And what that does, if I show you this wall here, see how much that rocks backwards and forwards. Now if we just come to it, we've put 2 boards on here, you will see that no matter how hard I push that wall's solid. So when you do all of the sides, the building starts to take shape and it becomes super strong. Right, so back wall, finished racking that.
Nice.
Noggins all the way through, just leaving that one wall now, and our openings for windows. We've used Chemfix for threaded bar and nut and washer on the plate, so now this building is strapped down to this concrete pad. So what we're going to do, we've also put some straps across the side where we haven't racked it yet, just to hold it level until we have. So now we're going to start putting on some of the rafters to help keep the building from swaying about when we're not here until the next day. Right, so remember we've done the back, we've racked it, we've put some temporary strapping on the sides because we haven't racked that yet, but that acts as racking, so the walls are now level both ways. So if you want to look, if we chuck that on there, as you can see we're nice and level. And now we're putting on our roof rafters, so we've sized them for the span they've got to cover, so you'll have to size yours to the span you've got to cover. Once you've got your rafters in place, we've set these out of 400 centres because that's what we like to use. You need to strap your roof down, super important. So what we do is we use something called a truss clip, and if you look over here, we've done one. See, that's nailed in. So if any wind was to come under the eaves, it won't just rip the roof straight off. It's now strapped to the building, so it's a little bit of a belts and braces sort of thing. So we're going to crack on with these. So when you're installing these, we use something called a twist nail. Looks like that. Looks like a nail but twisted. You can normally put these on the outside, but this building's a little bit different to what you would normally do. So we'll explain that at the end and we'll show you what we've done. So we're going to be installing them inside. Makes no odds. And it's just a case of nailing them every single hole. 200 more to go and we'll see you when it's done. Right, things have changed a little bit since you was last here. As you can see, we finished the racking that we was talking to you about. Most of the rafters are now on the roof, and our next step once you get to this stage is going to be putting in noggins like this one I've pre-cut and just wedged up there to show you. What they do is they tie your roof all together and they stop the rafters from twisting like this, and also we'll be showing you, because if you'll notice we've got a tight rope here, that's just to stop this wall while we're not here. That needs to get tied into these as well. That stops that wall from wobbling from the wind. So we've got to get on with that, and then it'll be time to move on to actually shutting this building in. So we've got a little framed in window here, as you can see. We've still got our 400 centres leading up to here, but then obviously they change slightly wherever we need to put our window. Then put a bottom plate, top plate and some noggins in to spread the weight of the roof. But because it's such a small, not really a big deal on these ones. Another thing I want to cover before we move on with this roof, we have got a 160 by 50 steel box tube up here, 5mm wall, and that is going to take the weight of the front of the roof. It's not a lot of weight on this design, but either way you need to take the weight because this is going to have bifolds, and bifolds don't like having weight pushed down on them. They'll stop working, they'll stop sliding.
How strong is it, Phil?
It's very strong. So let's get on with the roof.